Now, I can imagine that a lot of you out there, if not all of you, are really bored with the rumours going around, yeah? So let's scratch a different itch. What's Yuki Tsunoda's endgame? And what if I told you that he might survive at Red Bull, but also be reunited with a certain Pierre Gasly? So whilst the Max Verstappen chatter has now resorted to musing of him going to Alpine of all places, or even McLaren, my brain hurts right now, so I need a moment to come back to this later in the video, so keep watching. I wish to check in on Yuki Tsunoda, now that he has finally graced the second Red Bull car with points. Sure, it was just 2 of them, but in a race where Max had to scrap for 6th place, Yuki's P9 was solid, especially given he had a damaged front wing and worn out softs that made Russell's look fresh in comparison. Quite frankly, in my winners and losers video, I said that if Yuki had finished P9 whilst Max was busy on the podium, that would have been a decent enough shout for the Japanese driver. But for him to be able to do that and narrowly miss out on getting one step better, and then Max having his own problems, this was a really decent result and only his second race into the job as Max Verstappen's teammate in the cursed second car. With the team underperforming massively and Max was severely handicapped both in the pits and with those C1 hard tyres, this was a really good weekend for Yuki. And it could have been even better had the pit stop light not afflicted him as well. Those 2 seconds lost there might have gotten him 8th ahead of Ocon. Yes, I know P8 isn't particularly sexy right now for a Red Bull racing car, but right now, considering the RB21 doesn't know whether it's coming or going, or just going off, then yeah, this is actually not too bad for the Japanese driver, managing to find some sense in this car that seems utterly and perpetually neglected. And in a way, he's managed to provide that stability and continuity that the second car was busy being in the lower half of the points. So, okay, it seems like Yuki is getting somewhere with this car. But what is the end game here? What does he need to do to be able to survive this year? Because remember, it's only for this year, because Honda won't be around anymore to act as a wingman like back in the day. He'll have to fight his own corner. Well, I mean, that's kind of already the deal, actually, as I've said a few times already. Right now, Honda no longer views Yuki as a Honda driver per se. Now the arrangement seems to be like any other particular race driver, in that they provide cool hard cash to the team that carries them, just that means they can then have that leverage to be in that seat. So Yuki's just like any other driver, he just so happens to have sponsorship from Honda, a cool 10 million. It just means Honda are free to go about their relationship with Aston Martin, look at the current lineup, and then try and be polite about it and then just say when asked about Stroll, "Oh, muskashi." Sure, like every F1 driver, Yuki wants to be world champion, but there's more to it. He's chasing a place in Japanese motorsport history, because no other driver from his country has ever won an F1 Grand Prix. Heck, I don't recall anyone even being 2nd place. There have only been really a few notable characters within the sport that have hailed from Japan. There's Oguri Suzuki, Hiroshi Fushida, who was the first Japanese driver to qualify in 1975, Satoru Nakajima, who got the first full-time seat with Lotus in 1987, with Honda, and then Takuma Sato with BAR, Kamui Kobayashi, who got the last podium from a Japanese driver with Sauber. Tsunoda just wants to add himself to that list, or maybe even surpass them. And yes, okay, you might be thinking, oh, trying to win a Grand Prix, just one? Well, that's not exactly the highest mountain to climb now, is it, Law? Well, I mean, yeah, that's all very well and good. It's easily doable. But at the same time, Yuki's got to try and do it in probably one of the most difficult cars that he has probably ever raced, and that could easily be said for anyone up and down the grid, as we saw with the likes of Sergio and everyone before him ever since Daniel Ricciardo skipped town. He'll also have to deliver under intense scrutiny alongside a 4-time champion, and capitalise on a limited window of opportunity granted to him by the team. Christian Horner's arm having to be twisted so many times that he might end up going on to be a dab hand at the game Twister. And there might be a way for him to be able to secure a future that might be a little bit more nuanced than just hardcore results, because this car, again, does not know where it wants to be in the pecking order. And considering all the turmoil that this team has been through inside and out, maybe what Yuki can give to the team that might be really appreciated by all, even one Dr. Marco, is by becoming a source of calm. Because yes, Red Bull has had a rocky start to the season, which was initiated by a very misguided driver selection, which they then admitted was probably the wrong thing to do, but then they did it anyway. Tsunoda can maintain favour by having a calm, patient approach and offering clear, structured, data-driven feedback to his engineers. His composed demeanour under pressure, demonstrated by his finish in Bahrain, and his even-keeled "I could have done better" reflections, really would help ease tensions in the garage and even draw praise from Christian Horner. Him calling Tsunoda's efforts reasonable. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's not exactly electric now, is it? Well, what part of Red Bull's weekend was really electric? It's why many pundits, including myself, think that Yuki deserves to be lifted out of the Red Bull quagmire that really showed itself quite handily at a track where they have been actually a pretty dab hand the last couple of years. And that kernel of positivity, you know that Christian, the spin doctor, oh, he's going to run with that. So by focusing on just getting consistent point-scoring finishes rather than having erratic bursts of speed or Hail Marys for the sake of instantly proving the doubters wrong, Yuki can prove himself a dependable asset when the car's notorious volatility strikes, and the rumours regarding Max's supposed departure start to swirl around the paddock and the press. Seriously, it's become such a popular topic to talk about. I've seen pundits even talking about potentially a driver swap with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen McLaren. No! Do you really think that Max is going to subscribe to the idea of team first, papaya rules? Are you kidding me? Well, what I can tell you is what you should subscribe to is me. Thank you. So amidst all of that, you get the sense that the best thing Yuki can do is to take some of the load off of Verstappen, so that he might have time to find something workable with the steadily settling RB21. And I don't think what really helped was also the decision to give Ayumu Iwasa Max's car for FP1 to make up for the fact that Iwasa didn't get to race around Suzuka for the crowd, for the fans, for the home audience, simply because Yuki Tsunoda was then parachuted into the second Red Bull car and they needed both drivers hands on deck that particular weekend. So now obviously they're making up for it, Max stepped aside, and FP1 is really important for Max, so I think this decision to try and be fair and nice to one of Honda's backed drivers, yeah, that really sent Verstappen off kilter more than anyone expected. Had he been an FP1, he might have done slightly better. So I can't imagine that he was a happy bunny when he found out he wasn't going to be taking part in that first session. So looking back on it, that was probably a gaffe that Red Bull could have probably done without. And then when you look off the track, Yuki is a calm, cheeky presence, civil but honest, and definitely not a corporate robot. I mean, what kind of corporate robot would take this behind-the-scenes picture of Max with sunglasses, a backwards cap, and then doing the peace sign? That kind of energy, that is something that can give Red Bull some wings. And you've only got to look at what Yuki's been like in the media over the last year, ever since he really started to get to know Daniel Ricciardo, is that his attitude is really, really interesting. It's slightly confrontational, but also polite, diplomatic, and it really gets people thinking. Because all of this stuff about when Tsunoda got locked in for VCARB, Red Bull taking out the option to lock him down for 2025, stopping all the talks elsewhere, and then the talk of maybe going up to Red Bull with the struggles of Checo, that failed to materialise. Throughout all of that year, 2024, we constantly saw Tsunoda with no chill, but remaining just quite, demure, mindful, by basically just going, yeah, that is pretty weird, isn't it? It's a bit strange, isn't it, yeah? And that then suddenly got the media just going, hey, yeah, that is weird. Red Bull, what's up with that? Hey. So Yuki kind of got people on side, to the point where Honda felt empowered to be able to ask Red Bull, would you please give him a test in Abu Dhabi? And then everything goes from there. It's shown that he's grown through his time with F1, with all of the teammates he's had who've either moved on or crashed out. A little bit of Gasly, a little bit of De Vries, a whole heap of Daniel Ricciardo, not just in racecraft, but also diplomacy and conduct off track. And then, of course, he was able to manifest some of his cheekiness again when Isaac Hadjar was his teammate for a couple of races. You really saw that those two really got on with one another. And then with Lawson, it was a clear sign of what not to do. Maybe it was a means for Yuki to reflect how far he had come since 2021 and then just thinking, I'm glad I'm not that kind of a hothead anymore. And you might be thinking I'm being really harsh to Liam, but yeah, sure, Red Bull did him a disservice, but he certainly didn't do himself any favours either. He's really got to eat some humble pie. I mean, like, several humble pies. Ultimately, Yuki's steady performance and collaborative spirit, it can help steady the team's fortune and cement his reputation as more than just a temporary fix. Even though Helmut Marko has made it clear that there'll be no more driver changes this year, sure, it doesn't mean that next year he is very much guaranteed to be in the seat. That's still up for debate. I kind of saw this coming. So I think Yuki scoring points during a race where Max was really struggling and then having to deal with all of the adversities, that might have been a real shot in the arm for them seeing that, hey, wait a minute, actually he's really good. And he's actually really contributing to the team and also being rather nice about it. Or at least, saying the right words. Tsunoda on the track needs to bring to the table, in return for this goodwill and promotion, consistency, constructive input, and a can-do attitude in the paddock, which so far he is doing. Whilst Max is being open, honest, direct, but ultimately not all that glowing regarding the team, which only serves to manifest pessimism regarding his future, Yuki's more reflective and introspective take on things might underscore his value to Red Bull's long-term prospects. Because it has been done before, because I'm still baffled to this day that even though Scott Speed got his chance with Toro Rosso, he scored no points, he proved to be a total misfit for Formula One, and then had a Barney with Franz Tost, and that has never happened before. He then gets punted off, replaced by Sebastian Vettel, and throughout all of that, he still has a working relationship with Red Bull. Red Bull sponsoring him in various other competition, and then he finds himself in a 2010s Red Bull car at a demonstration event. So yes, the Lord Bernie Collins works in mysterious ways. But anyway, Yuki's apparent blend of calm leadership, reliability, positive communication, it's the best path for him to win favour and secure a place with the team. But okay, let's get a little bit more technical here. In Friday practice, Yuki really gave honest feedback about the way the RB21 worked. And during the Japanese Grand Prix, we saw more and more headlines about Horner and Marko saying that yes, with the second car, we will lean into what Yuki Tsunoda wants and expects from a car, which is exactly why we saw the different setup directions for both Verstappen and Tsunoda. Finally moving away from the stubbornness of Pierre Gasly, who was always Max first, tunnel vision. And if you want something that's a little bit more apt, colourful, and also not inaccurate, here's Juan Pablo Montoya's take on the matter, which is it's quite good. Yuki Tsunoda is doing good. I think Red Bull realised they were fudging it up, I had to change it there, massively from that side of the garage. They were running Max stuff on both cars and just saying to the number 2, "You're an idiot, you can't drive." You know, the whole thing with Marko saying about Lawson about just shut up and drive the car, you're just not wrong there. Tsunoda was a better choice than Liam Lawson because he has been in F1 long enough now, and he's got enough knowledge to drive the car and go, this needs changing. Oh man, Juan Pablo Montoya is a pundit. I love his takes sometimes, and they're also true. I don't think you need me to tell you that for years the second driver has had to suffer the slings and arrows of social media, the press, and Helmut Marko whenever they couldn't come close to Max Verstappen. All would struggle to keep the car from having a kiss with the barriers, having to overdrive the car to get anywhere close to the Dutchman. And crucially, the team is actually listening. And his timing couldn't be better. For years, Checo was fighting a losing battle with the technical team, all in the midst of Verstappen busy making history for himself and dragging the team along for the glory. Checo's words were not heeded, and he paid the price for it, both on the track and in the headlines. As did Liam. Sure, his own rhetoric wasn't conducive to winning fans, but it did blow open at this entire situation, which is transcended beyond his own plight. One that he seeks to address over a V-carb, try the best that he can, and maybe hope that he can get another full season to re-find his feet, and then restake his claim for the Red Bull leadership sooner rather than later. And yes, we've all been waiting for Yuki Tsunoda to get his chance with Red Bull, and thankfully, this patience has been rewarded. But beyond offering calm, measured feedback, Yuki could maybe act as a living liaison between the wind tunnel and track data by delivering that precise lap-by-lap insight into the RB21's narrow operating window and tyre behaviour. The Red Bull wind tunnel was originally established during the Cold War. It is incredibly ancient, and I know you're also going to be saying, well, that's not going to be around for long, Red Bull's building a new one. Yes, they are. But apparently they are about 3 months ahead of schedule. They might be able to use it for next year's car to some extent. Kind of like how McLaren were able to dabble with their new wind tunnel, their new toy with the MCL38 a little bit, and fully for this year's car. And it shows how effective new equipment can be. Whether or not Max is around to actually be able to sample the fruits and labours of this brand new wind tunnel, it remains to be seen. Anyway, according to outlets like motorsport.com and formula.hu, Yuki's detailed descriptions of understeer onset, brake feel variations, and heat cycles with the tyres will help engineers pinpoint discrepancies in their simulations and accelerate development of aero and suspension solutions from having it from him as well as Max. And I can't tell you, his ability to whisper to those tyres, the C3s, being able to last 25 laps, outdoing by 1 lap the likes of Russell, who we all lauded it for, Yuki deserves a lot of credit too. Maybe, in some sort of silly, more nebulous way, Checo's goodwill toward him, having no ill blood towards him being replaced by Yuki eventually, maybe he provided some of his tire whisperer vibes to him to try and wish him well from behind the scenes, and his really good sponsorship lucrative deals over in Mexico, and preparing for a return with Cadillac, because we all know that's going to be happening. But being serious here, methodically mapping how setup adjustments shift the car within its tight performance band, perhaps he and Max can sort out the seemingly poor correlation that is going on right now, and then ready the brand new one for it to be much better. Effectively, they can both become a human wind tunnel. And hopefully not like what we saw with Lawson for those first couple of races, and still kind of now, a load of hot air. Look, I know I'm being really harsh on him, and I really hope that he can find his feet again over a V-carb, but whoever told him and insisted to act that way, "I'm not here to make friends," that kind of rhetoric had nothing to back it up with. Whoever told him to say that deserves a clip around the ear. So Yuki's upbeat team-first attitude right now, and his openness in the paddock, as well as popularity, it can maybe temper internal frustrations, turning criticisms of the brakes and tyre failings into constructive dialogue. Something of which Max is doing a lot of lately, but in the opposite manner. Him now stating that the car is now in an even worse place than last year when it comes to the never-ending cycle of tyres overheating, which means the brakes don't work properly. It's what we heard on the radio during Bahrain the entire event. But it all goes back to the classic saying of "it's not what you said, but the way you said it." Tsunoda is a lot more calm about it. He's still just as honest as Max, but it's a lot more like, yeah, it is kind of a thing that happens, and I'm not really liking it, but I'm going to get on top of it. I will work something out. We'll manage. So that sort of optimism and thinking, yeah, we will get through this. We will break through. We will do our best of our ability, and we will find a solution. People are now thinking, that's a really spirited outlook, Yuki. I'm happy for you. Good on you, Red Bull. I'm just saying that Yuki might be the yin to Max's yang almost. They almost sort of work in harmony in a really bizarre Dutch-Japanese combo. But looking ahead to next year, Yuki's best shot is to stay sharp, stay calm, steady, and stay in the Red Bull family, with or without Honda's hand-holding. Red Bull will face a total reboot. New engines, new aero regs, hopefully a new working wind tunnel that doesn't lie to them. And if Tsunoda's still around, his experience with this year's car's quirks could be vital in making sure the RB22 is right from the get-go. That kind of technical handover from both Verstappen and Tsunoda may be critical, now that the technical team is more willing to listen to them. So if they end up in a situation where Max is no longer with them, and then they decide to drop Tsunoda anyway, then they won't have that continuity. They'll have to just go in blind, and they will then have to openly admit that they wouldn't be rebuilding themselves to really make another crack for the constructors. No, they would just have to be rebuilding in the midfield, and then hopefully in a couple of years, they can then try again. Now, okay, you think I would be getting the foam out for this bit, but I'm not going to, because I'm feeling a little bit frisky today. Something that Ralf Schumacher said about Max Verstappen and Alpine, yes, I know, it sounds completely bonkers, it's still got my mind racing, and I want to yap on about it, so just indulge me, okay? So, disclaimer. This speculative piece of Ralph suggesting Alpine take on Verstappen, it is absolutely bonkers, but having played around with this thought, it is quite a fascinating. Flavio Briatore's pedigree in forging world champions like Ralph's brother Michael, Alonso, and then Alpine switched to Mercedes power units, it's led pundits like Ralph to speculate that they might try and make a bid for Verstappen. It might not work, but they might just want to give it a try. Much like how Flavio was trying his best to secure the services of Carlos Sainz for 2025, and then ultimately that didn't work out, and it really didn't help they hadn't secured the Mercedes deal at that point. Now they've got it, and many people are speculating that Mercedes are going to have the best power unit again. You might want to find yourself working for a Mercedes-powered team, or a works team. So therefore, this time around, they may have a little bit more bargaining power. And you've got to look at the Alpine at the moment. It is quite a good car on its day. Pierre Gasly against Max Verstappen, holding his own, and then at the back end of last year, it's a really good car in the right pair of hands. And also, the advisor's concurrent interest in talents such as Franco Colapinto for next year, a race seat there, it's highlighted also an approach to Alexander Albon according to Lawrence Barretto. It inspires me to muse a 2026 dream swap, featuring Verstappen Colapinto at Alpine or Pytech or whatever, and Gasly Tsunoda at Red Bull. Now, I know contract barriers may make this completely unlikely, and I still think that some of my theory can hold up if Max Verstappen goes to Aston Martin. It doesn't have to be with Alpine, but just let me yap on about it because I want to. It may provide Toto Wolff with an in to secure Max in the long run, should either George or Kimi move on for any reason in the next few years. whilst giving the Enstone squad a genuine title contender. Whatever happens, Toto can then claim that Max is part of the Mercedes family after all these years, while still retaining his junior boys. And in the case of Franco, it really does seem likely he will be getting a seat over at Alpine, and in an ideal way, if Verstappen does go to Aston Martin and then Gasly gets picked up by Red Bull, I'll get onto that in a moment, it may give Doohan a stay of execution alongside Colapinto. And we all know that the Argentinian's going to get a seat next year, because if Flavio can't get in this year, it's definitely going to be next year, because Jack only has a one-year contract. But if he can get that dream lineup, it would leverage Briatore's champion-making expertise. And Colapinto's form last year is only enhanced more by the fact of how much Sainz has been struggling at the moment. And in a way, if you think about it, had Helmut Marko not got cold feet after Franco crashed around Vegas, which Franco admits that was his own fault, by the way, Verstappen and Colapinto might have crossed paths within the Red Bull group anyway. So maybe it might just happen, but with another team. So, okay, you mentioned Pierre, and if Verstappen comes in and Colapinto's there as well, then that surely means that Pierre's going to get pushed out, which could easily happen, because remember that Drive to Survive clip where Pierre really did well, and Flavio was then joking saying, oh, I thought you were a something, and as in, like, he didn't really value Pierre, but then he did something really good and was like, this Pierre guy is really good. And it just makes me feel like that maybe this might be a means of Pierre to get some vindication, a second chance. And again, my theory was further fueled by that comment from Lawrence Barretto that, according to his own sources, Alex Albon had been approached by Red Bull to come back within the family for 2025, but then declined the offer. And I totally understand why he would have done so, because Alex has gone on record many times about how cutthroat Red Bull is as an organisation, especially when Max Verstappen is the top banana, and why would he want to subject himself to that again? He just admits that maybe his personality and demeanour was just not cut out for Red Bull, and it's more better suited to a more hospitable environment, a non-political one that is Williams Racing right now. So maybe Christian might want to be bold again with Briatore and manage to sign back Pierre Gasly, the former Red Bull junior who was promoted in 2019 and then demoted Alan Lawson. You get the sense that Pierre has always wanted to prove himself and find himself back in a relatively top-field team. Return to the side of Yuki Tsunoda, offering Gasly a second bite at the apple. Tsunoda the benefit of an experienced teammate and a dear friend. Now, again, it really does depend on how committed Red Bull will be to really just put all of their differences aside, because apparently there are a lot of situations where in 2019, Gasly ruffled many feathers amongst the engineers and the senior staff. They will just simply have to just accept some humility and realize that, hey, Pierre actually is a really good mature driver right now. He is nothing like he was back in 2019. And again, in that Alpine, holding Verstappen back for 20 laps does show some really good racecraft. And may I remind you that it was Pierre's performance in Bahrain with Toro Rosso in 2018 that convinced the senior team to bite the bullet and go with the works operation for 2019. So Pierre, Bahrain, it's really a good signifier of his general ability. So surely, if they're looking for somebody as a backup in case Max bails, go to Alpine and then get Pierre back. It worked so well with AlphaTauri, who's to say it might not work well here? They'll be on the same page. They'll be wanting a similar relationship that Albon and Sainz have now, to eschew political tensions and just get on with restoring Red Bull's dignity and glory again together. And yes, immense contractual and performance barriers are in the way of this theory, but the idea itself, it's so undeniably fun, it's such a fantasy. I mean, surely it tickles your fancy just at least a little bit, right? It's just a nice little thought experiment, and I'm glad that you were able to hear me out. And right now, Yuki has excelled, the patience paid off, and now he's no longer being overlooked by the senior management. Aside from his height, ha. But perhaps inspiring Horner to maybe look back at past mistakes with him and maybe realise that drivers can change, and with Pierre's dream of racing for a French works team having eroded since joining Alpine 2 years ago, a change of scene, albeit slightly familiar, could be his best chance to restore his aspirations of racing for a works outfit after all. Again, his performances at the end of last year and this year, it reflects that he is a really good racing driver. He just needs the right car underneath him, which at the moment in Bahrain he did. And Red Bull's public image right now is simply in the toilet. If they can get Gasly and Tsunoda together, they can clean it off, completely sterilize it, and then go again with a popular and really engaging social media double act. So yes, maybe this is Yuki's indirect endgame. To lead the team, to bring glory to Japan, and to set the tone with how Red Bull operates in an era post-Verstappen. So long as he remains patient, he plays by the rules, he offers Red Bull some contributing feedback and helps improve the car, that's all he's got to do. And then score some points, trying to make sure they can at least survive and hang on for third. But even though he's doing all the right things, his career may be still a little bit precarious. You know, who knows what Dr. Marco's going to be saying tomorrow for his breakfast. What also looks precarious is the FIA president right now. With his deputy walking out on him, could this be a sign that support for Mr. Sullivan is waning where it matters? To find out why Robert Reed's departure means a lot more than you might have thought, considering how anonymous he has been, watch this video next, straight after this one.